Welcome. I'm Dr. Cynthia Cook, Director of the Defense Industrial Initiatives Group here at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. And I'm pleased to welcome both the in-person and online attendees at our event on Collaborating for Resilience, in Japanese and U.S. industry cooperation on the maintenance, repair, and overhaul of United States Air Force aircraft systems. For those in person, there's emergency exits at the back and the front of the room. I would note that this is part of a project sponsored by the Japanese government's Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics Agency, or ATLA, and conducted by the Defense Industrial Initiatives Group in partnership with the Japan Chair here at CSIS. Our topic today is maintenance, repair, and overhaul of military aircraft, which is essential for ensuring the operational readiness, longevity, and technological superiority of defense fleets. For any operation in the Indo-Pacific, the challenge of contested logistics will make it difficult to bring aircraft back to the homeland for repair. A strategy that brings MRO closer to where airplanes operate offers a solution to this. The United States has a long-standing close partnership with Japan, and performing MRO there can enhance rapid response capabilities and logistical efficiency for U.S. and allied air forces. Strengthening U.S. Japan MRO collaboration and partnering with Japanese industry to perform MRO on U.S. Air Force aircraft has the potential to improve fleet availability and reduce maintenance turnaround time, ensuring a more robust and resilient force. Examining that question is the subject of our analysis and the topic we will be covering today. For welcoming remarks, I am very pleased to be able to introduce Lieutenant General Stacy Hawkins, who is the commander of the Air Force Sustainment Center, part of the Air Force Materiel Command. He joins us virtually today from Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma. Lieutenant General Hawkins oversees the end-to-end life cycle sustainment and logistics for aircraft, missiles, propulsion systems, aerospace commodities, and weapon system software to ensure Department of Defense warfighting readiness. He is a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy, along with significant other schooling. General Hawkins, thank you for your interest in our work and for taking the time today. Over to you.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Cook, and good afternoon, everyone from Middle America. Right here in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma at Tinker Air Force Base, where the Air Force Sustainment Center is headquartered. Thank you for that introduction, and I extend greetings and a hearty welcome to Councilor Fukawa and my good friend, General Kaczynski, who I have the opportunity to talk to from time to time. So happy to be able to offer some opening comments. I think you're going to have a riveting discussion today by a distinguished panel, and I just want to give my perspective from here in the field as the Air Force Sustainment Center Commander, a job that I have enjoyed immensely. And we are essentially the Air Force's organic industrial base. And as commander, as Dr. Cook mentioned, we have the responsibility of performing depot maintenance on aircraft, missiles, commodities, and exchangeables. We also have a robust software development organization as well. And for the past 80 years, we've been hard at work doing this for the nation, and there's empirical evidence that says that we've been successful. As we enter into near-peer competition and warfighting with adversaries around the world, 2 years ago, I came to the realization that what brought us here won't take us there, essentially. And we have been in discussions for quite some time about how we project and extend our capabilities and capacity within the Air Force's organic industrial base to actually deliver to our warfighters in theater. And to that end, we developed a concept called genus. If you go back to your 9th or 10th grade biology studies, genus and species, genus has a etymological root to spawn something. And the mnemonic means Global Enterprise Network for Universal Sustainment. And for the past 15 months, we've been hard at work building relationships, not just with our joint service partners who've also been at this for quite some time, but with our invaluable partners and allies. And over the past 15 months, we've traveled to Australia, New Zealand, Philippines. We've also traveled to Alaska, Guam, Saipan, and Tinian. But just recently, we had a very, very rewarding and illuminating trip to Japan and Korea. And particularly with our Japanese partners, we are building on an already established relationship, because although we've not been projecting our capacity forward in a robust way for the past 80 years, we have one example of how this has been done successfully, and that's our Support Center Pacific organization, which is actually at Kadena Air Base in Okinawa, Japan. And so building on that, we feel that the ecosystem is rich to build on that success and scale it accordingly. And our trip to Japan 2 months ago, the beginning of January, we had an opportunity to have robust discussions with the Ministry of Defense. We met with leaders from ATLA, and we also met with the DICAS working group. And we believe that the opportunity over the next months and a year's time frame, that we have an opportunity to scale what we are calling Falcons. And these are Forward Air Logistics Complex operating nodes, where we intend to actually extend our depot capabilities into our allied and partner nations. And we believe that Japan is a prime candidate to begin this journey. So just yesterday, to the folks assembled in the audience, I had a chance to visit with General Fujinaga, who came from the Japanese Air Self-Defense Force, and we had a conversation that really tends to take this concept to implementation. And we have actually put some ideas in motion as to how we can run a successful pilot using a basket of commodities for like aircraft that we fly together, think F-15. And if we can actually prove out this concept, then the opportunity to scale accordingly. The reason that Japan is so attractive to us is that, again, all of the ingredients are there. We have a strong U.S. military partner there, with 5th Air Force being headquartered in Japan. We also have a strong mill-to-mill relationship already in existence with the Japanese Air Self-Defense Force. And during our trip recently in January, we were able to hold an industry roundtable, and we see great potential in partnering with national Japanese industries. Think Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, IHI, and the like, to actually see what type of high-performing public-private partnerships we can engage in to actually scale our GENIUS concept, which is to increase supply chain resiliency globally. So this is definitely in line with the theme of today's talk. So I'm excited as the Air Force Sustainment Center Commander. I look forward to working very closely with our joint service partners. When you look at Japan, the Navy is already doing some of this work, and we're also talking to the Army as well, working with our Indo-Pacific headquarters warfighters, making sure that we're aligned to their intent. And we believe that this squarely aligns with the Secretary of Defense's 3 priorities: restoring our warfighting ethos, rebuilding our military, which we believe GENIUS is right dab in the middle of that when it comes to revitalizing the defense industrial base, and also reestablishing deterrence. Because to the extent that we can resolve the tyranny of distance problem, resolve the contested logistics problem, and resolve the time challenge, we can actually create a deterrent effect that will make our adversaries think twice. So again, thanks so much. I regret not being there in person. Hopefully you can tell by my passion. If I were there, I would definitely be cheering and rooting this panel on. But I ask that you challenge us over the course of this discussion to bring any ideas that you have to the table. And if there are areas where we are not thinking through that you think we should, I'm happy to take the feedback from this discussion and weave it into what we're doing. But so excited to continue to learn from the assembly today, the audience, your experiences, and I also appreciate the close collaboration and partnership with CSIS and Dr. Cook, a very worthy initiative that's part of her portfolio, and we really appreciate the attention that she's placing on supply chain resilience and maintenance, repair, and overhaul activities. So I'll stop there, and thank you, Dr. Cook. I appreciate the opportunity to make these opening remarks, and I'll defer to our distinguished panel, and I look forward to listening in. Thank you so much, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, General Hawkins. And thank you for your support of this work. There is a QR code. If you have questions for the Air Force, please submit them in the QR code, and we will share them with Air Force after the event. So thank you for that. I will now introduce our keynote speakers and our panel moderator for the first session, which covers the government perspective from both the United States and Japan. Our first keynote speech will be delivered by Mr. Hideki Fukawa, who is the Counselor for Defense Equipment Cooperation at ATLA. Mr. Fukawa has served in a wide range of senior roles in the Japanese government, including most recently in the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry, or METI, as Director of Defense Industry. In this role, he was responsible for defense industrial cooperation enhancement and oversaw critical technology development to strengthen the defense industrial base. Next, we will hear from Lieutenant General Kaczynski, who recently retired in October as the Director for Logistics on the Joint Staff in the United States Department of Defense. In that role, General Kaczynski integrated logistics planning and execution in support of global operations and assisted the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in fulfilling his responsibilities as the Principal Military Advisor to the President and Secretary of Defense. Lieutenant General Kaczynski was a command pilot with over 3,300 hours. He is a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy and also speaks Japanese. I'm the only person on this stage who does not. Finally, our moderator today is my colleague and partner in this research, Mr. Nicholas Seichenyi. He is the Vice President of the Geopolitics and Foreign Policy Department and a Senior Fellow with the Japan Chair here at CSIS. He holds a Master's in International Economics and Japan's Studies from Johns Hopkins and a BA in Asian Studies from Connecticut College. He lived in Japan for 6 years and, as I mentioned, speaks fluent Japanese. Counselor Fukawa, over to you for your remarks, and please give them in English if you don't mind.
Thank you, introduction. So, hello everyone. My name is Hideki Fukawa, Counselor for Defense Equipment Corporation of Atlas. I'm responsible for promoting defense equipment cooperation with ally and like-minded countries, including the United States. So it's a great honor to be here with you today. I'd like to begin by addressing CSIS team to host and coordinate today's event, and thank you for everyone being here and online, even midnight in Tokyo. Today, so as keynote speech, I'd like to talk about our perspective on security environment surrounding Japan, then strategic direction between US and Japan to respond to severe and complex security environment. And lastly, so possibly for Japanese defense industry, its contribution to aircraft MRO and challenges. So first, I'd like to introduce our perspective on security environment as background of today's discussion. So the Indo-Pacific region is the core of global vitality, home to more than half of the world population. The dynamism of the intersection of the Pacific and Indian Ocean is a growth engine for the global economy. Japan and United States are situated in this region, and both countries are well positioned to benefit from these regions. At the same time, the Indo-Pacific region faces a lot of security challenges. Several nations and regions that have large military forces do not share universal values nor political and economic systems based on universal values. And we face threats and challenges of various types and intensities, such as unilateral changes to the status quo and such attempts in this region and so on. So Japan's security environment is as severe and complex as it has been since 1945. From that perspective, Japan formulated new national security strategy in 2022. The national security strategy says that the Japan and US alliance with the Japan-US security arrangement at its core, plays an indispensable role not only for the security of Japan, but also for the realization of peace and stability in the international community, including in the Indo-Pacific regions. Therefore, Japan is willing to strengthen the Japan-US alliance. So Japan reinforces our fundamental defense capabilities through an increase in defense budget to the 2% of GDP by 27. Japan will strengthen Japan's defense capabilities to the point at which Japan is able to take responsibility for dealing with several challenges. Here, I'd like to emphasize an importance of defense industries. National Security Strategy of Japan says defense industry or defense production and technology base are characterized as defense capabilities themselves. I suppose the same as the United States. In line with that, Ministry of Defense at large make efforts on strengthening Japanese defense industry through procurement, introducing new act on strengthening defense production and technology base, and the other measures. Also, defense equipment and technology cooperation is one of the ways to strengthen defense industrial base. U.S. defense industry is one of the most important partners for Japanese defense industries, as well as self-defense forces. So, to advance U.S. Japan's defense industrial cooperation, including joint development, joint production, and joint sustainment, is significant for strengthening not only defense industrial base, but also Japan-U.S. alliance. So then, I'd like to talk about the strategic direction of Japan and U.S. defense industrial cooperations. So U.S. Defense Industrial Strategy, DIS, published by DoD in 24, prioritized actions to build a modernized defense industrial ecosystem and call for sustained collaboration and cooperation with U.S. allies and partners abroad. It also says that U.S. DoD pursues to engage allies and partners to expand global defense production and increase supply chain resilience. Further, for the optimization of regional MRO, DoD also published a Regional Sustainment Framework, RSF. I understand that the RSF is positioned as support for global partnership addressed by DIS. One of the goals of RSF is prevail in a contest logistics environment by establishment of distributed MRO ecosystem that remains viable in peacetime and meets surge requirement in contingency. And also, United States Air Force have an initiative called GENAS. So regarding to Japan and U.S. bilateral relationship, ATLA and DoD started DICAS discussions. In the series of DICAS discussion, Japan and U.S. prioritized 4 areas like missile co-production, ship repair, supply chain resiliency, and aircraft MRO. So relevant government stakeholders are having intensive discussion for coordination of co-production, co-development, co-sustainment, sharing challenges and solutions, and so on. Japan take role in maintaining peace and security in the Indo-Pacific region by seamlessly responding to any situation from peacetime to contingencies. It's reaffirmed in the U.S. and Japan summit meeting in February. Based on those, I can say that the strategic direction is the same. So taking our common direction into consideration, ATLA has commissioned a study on a complementary approach for aircraft MRO to CSIS in order to deep dive into practical challenges for defense industrial cooperation through discussion among Japan and U.S. stakeholders and utilizing CSIS expertise on security matter. So let's move on to the possibility for Japanese defense industry's contribution to aircraft MRO. Japanese self-defense force deploys many aircraft in common with the United States, like F-35, F-15, C-130, and so on. And Japan's defense industries have been supported by U.S. defense industries to develop their capabilities, especially aircraft. In 1950s, Japanese aircraft industries acquired technological knowledge through repair for U.S. military aircraft during the Korean War. And based on support by U.S. government and defense industries, Japanese defense industry have been improving their capabilities through knockdown production, license production, and joint development like F-2 based on F-16. Through those experiences, Japanese defense industries are reached to and composed of not only prime companies, but also many suppliers in Japan. Japan have military aircraft supply chain in Japan supported by over 1,000 aircraft companies. I believe that only Japan has those military aircraft supply chain like US in its countries. Further, thanks to attributes of Japanese companies, they are always working on improving efficiency called Kaizen. When United States Air Force officers visited to MRO facilities in Japan, they always said that they were so impressed with Japanese companies' activities. I think that it's one of the strong points of Japanese industry. Japan aircraft supply chain have been supporting Japanese JASDAF operation 24 hours, 7 days. Our competitors always attempt to contest our air capabilities. In response to their attempt, JASDAF scrambles around 700 times per year, at the most over 1,000 times per year. Japanese defense industries contribute to such JASDAF activities in limited number of aircraft of JASDAF. Japanese defense companies have great business record with JASDAF, no delay of delivery of MRO without any severe incidents. Those MRO capability of Japanese industries includes on-site maintenance, depot level maintenance, and supply major component of parts. So, given commonality of aircraft assets among US and Japan, I'm certain US military can use Japanese MRO capabilities. So, Japan can contribute to improve military readiness by overcoming distance and time disadvantage with the United States mainland. These cooperations must lead to work as deterrent. Considering the current attempts by our competitors, also I'd like to emphasize that moving forward, our cooperation is the urgent issue for both of us. At the same time, in order to move forward MRO cooperation, we have to consider industrial perspective on cooperations. Of course, so government discussion and needs from government are important, but it's not enough for moving forward our cooperations. Actually, so several U.S. defense companies ask Japanese company to supply components or parts for aircraft and provide maintenance service to U.S. Force Japan assets. From my understanding, background of those movements is from challenges for U.S. defense industries, like limitation of production capacity, suppliers' withdrawal from defense business, or necessary to invest new defense equipment and technologies. I believe that U.S. defense company can overcome those challenges through cooperation with Japanese defense industry. U.S. defense company expands or extends their capacity using Japan's capacities, and Japanese defense suppliers may complement products of withdrawal suppliers in the United States, and U.S. defense company can save their resources and divert those to new technology or defense areas. So, as you may know, Japan had prohibited defense export. Under such situation, Japanese defense companies was not able to participate in U.S. defense supply chain or MRO for U.S. military assets. However, Japanese government had formulated new defense export policy called 3 Principles on Defense Equipment and Technology Transfer in 2014 and revised it in 23 and last year. Those revisions of Japan's defense export policy enabled Japanese defense company to enter into global defense market. So participation of aircraft MRO provide knowledge and experience on global defense market to Japanese defense industries. Therefore, I recognize Japan and U.S. defense industrial cooperation could lead to be win-win cooperation for both of us, as well as peace and stability in these regions. I believe that cooperation allows both defense industries to invest new and urgent capabilities. And then it could lead to create new jobs. And at the same time, there are some challenges for our cooperation. In general, Japanese defense companies are not familiar with U.S. contract mechanism. Also, I think that U.S. forces have limitation of offering works to private sector and non-U.S. contractors. And some private companies say difference of standards and certification mechanism is hurdles for moving forward industrial corporations because they need big invest to get over the hurdle. Further, we have to consider the business case. Private companies face difficulty to make decision of investment when they start new business cooperation unless they have many factors to be considered. If private sector can get those easily, then their investment will be smoothly. Military aircraft MRO needs is only from government or services in uncertainty of securities. And also, so we need to maintain, keep, and increase MRO capability for peace and stability in these regions. Therefore, I consider the government have to think how we can offer kind of green signal for investment to private sectors. It could enhance industries to consider necessity of investment and invest into their facilities for new MRO business. At the end of my speech, I'd like to show you my expectation. As I said, MRO cooperation is good opportunity for U.S. and Japan industrial corporations. At the same time, we need to consider a lot of matters, including challenges. However, so increasing MRO capacity and capability is urgent issues for U.S. and Japan to respond to severe and complex security situations. From that sense, I think we need a lot of discussion with relevant stakeholders of government and private sectors of U.S. and Japan. I hope today's event must be fruitful for all attendees and to advance our discussion of practice, future cooperation and collaboration among us. Again, so ATRA is willing to make efforts on moving forward Japan and U.S. aircraft MRO cooperation. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues. It's an honor to be here today and to participate in this critical discussion on the strategic environment in the Indo-Pacific and the potential for closer U.S. defense industrial cooperation, specifically focusing on maintenance, repair, and overhaul for U.S. Air Force aircraft. Over my 35 years in the Air Force, I've watched the Indo-Pacific region increasingly become a focal point of global strategic competition. As nations vie for influence and security, the importance of robust defense capabilities and logistical readiness cannot be overstated. The vastness and complexity of the Indo-Pacific theater present unique challenges, necessitating a collaborative approach to ensure stability and security. The region's strategic environment is shaped by several factors, including geopolitical rivalries, the presence of major maritime trade routes, and the need for rapid response capabilities to address potential conflicts. The U.S. and Japan, as key allies, share a vested interest in maintaining peace and stability in the region. So by leveraging our combined strengths and resources, we can enhance our defense posture and readiness. Military aircraft MRO is essential for ensuring the operational readiness, longevity, and technological superiority of defense fleets. MRO closer to the fight, as was mentioned by many of my colleagues, or by a few of my colleagues here, offers a solution to the increasingly contested logistics that warfighters will face. By positioning MRO capabilities within the Indo-Pacific, we can enhance rapid response capabilities and logistical efficiencies for U.S. and allied forces. Of course, Japan offers advantageous operating location in the region, providing a strategic base for conducting MRO activities. Strengthening U.S. Japan MRO collaboration will not only improve fleet readiness and availability, but also reduce maintenance turnaround time, will ensure a more robust and resilient force. There's also growing potential for increased bilateral and multilateral cooperation among countries like Australia, the Philippines, Indonesia, among others. During my time at the Pentagon and the Joint Staff, I worked closely with Assistant Secretary of Defense for Sustainment, Chris Lohman, in service and combatant commands on the Regional Sustainment Framework, RSF, which has been discussed today. RSF is an operational and strategic imperative for the Department of Defense. As General Hawkins mentioned in his opening comments, the primary goal of GENIS, that Global Enterprise Network for Universal Sustainment Initiative, is to enhance military readiness by expanding that depot-level maintenance capabilities beyond depots, thereby improving aircraft availability and operational flexibility in strategic regions like the Indo-Pacific. GENIS nests very well under the RSF framework and sets the example in Department of Defense as the Air Force pathway to global RSF efforts. Consequently, the GENIS initiative is part of the broader strategy to adapt to the demands of modern warfare and great power competition. By expanding our sustainment footprints, we aim to reduce logistical vulnerabilities, to increase the agility of our forces, and maintain our strategic advantage through enhanced maintenance and repair capabilities worldwide. GENIS involves three key partnership approaches: military-to-military collaborations, where we work directly with our partners and allied forces; Second is partnership with indigenous industries and host nations to leverage those local capabilities. And third, partnerships with U.S. companies abroad to utilize their established presence and expertise. It is clear to me and to many others of the Department of Defense that the need for deployed depot-level maintenance in times of crisis and conflict is critical in a contested logistics environment. So the potential for closer U.S.-Japan defense industrial cooperation is vast. Engaging Japanese industry, especially the high-quality Japanese industry which we have to perform MRO on U.S. aircraft, has the potential to significantly enhance the capability of both nations. By fostering strong partnership between the U.S. and Japanese defense industries, we can create a more resilient and capable defense infrastructure. This collaboration will not only benefit the U.S. and Japan, but will also contribute to the overall security and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. But there are barriers and some obstacles to address, and Councilor Fukawa-san mentioned some of these. So we must address these barriers that may hinder our progress. These include regulatory challenges, differing industrial standards, and the need for seamless integration of technology and processes, ultimately by the warfighter, which are the Japanese and U.S. military members generating the needed air power capabilities at the time and place of need. By working together to overcome these obstacles, the U.S. and Japan can unlock the full potential of their defense industrial partnership. Therefore, one of the main obstacles we need to overcome is really the outdated regulatory guidance and evaluation and acceptance of risk that is in the current short term and understand in the future this continuum of conflict and competition. Unfortunately, in our current mindset, the incentive system seemed to focus very much on short-term concerns on risks such as in sharing and cooperation and maybe some industrial processes and differences. While those have been important, those are not insurmountable. And those are short-term risks that we should work very hard to overcome. Because if we focus on those short-term concerns, while fail to consider the compounding long-term risks and lack of interoperability and lack of future needed capacity. So if we do not move quickly in closer defense cooperation, start building this needed industrial capacity, we will not be able to have that in the future, and that's is core of what's needed for deterrence. So I believe we need to consider a process across a continuum, not a binary peacetime and wartime mindset. When we have a process where in case of emergency, we'll break glass and then do these procedures. For any of you who've done training or operations, or at least me in my 30-some years in the military, that doesn't work or doesn't work well. Because if we don't practice and train and institutionalize these collaborative maintenance efforts now and work through those challenges now and build those capacities now, if we don't do that, it could be too late to respond in the time needed and to build the capacity in time of need. Because our adversaries don't have the same self-imposed restrictions or have some of the same maybe outdated mindsets on that. Several of our adversaries out there on a wartime footing. And so if the U.S. and Japan, were in a type of wartime footing, these decisions would be very easy, and they would be delegated to the lowest level possible. So, but I think now we need to start changing our mindset. And what I hear and see from the current administration, especially the new Undersecretary for Policy and others, I think the willingness to take this calculated risk, to move fast and accelerate our preparation in order to provide critical deterrence soonest and in the future is going to happen. And in that case, from a military background, I'd love to be able to put that risk and decisions in the hands of commanders, those who can make those decisions, and at the appropriate levels to allow flexibility and agility now and in the future. From my time in the Joint Staff, first as a Japan Country Director in the J5 many, many years ago, and most recently as the Director of Logistics, I was constantly focused on the lethality and the needs of the joint warfighter, to include our allies and partners. Our joint warfighters, who are the customers from the business sense, should be determining these requirements, along with our Kokujietai, our Japan Air Self-Defense Force members, on the military bases and operating locations in the regions. So I had the opportunity to study at a university in Japan called Hitotsubashi University as an Olmsted scholar in Tokyo many years ago. And my professor at the time was, and my seminar professor still was, Dr. Ikijiro Nonaka, who started off his academic career writing a very impactful book in Japan call the essence of failure, shippai no honshitsu. And the idea of that, it may have been about, but it's about when you lose something or figuring out why you may have failed in something, but then working backwards to figure out how you can make sure you don't fail in the future. And so Nonaka Sensei explained to me that to really create valuable knowledge and innovation, which is what we need to do, we need to consider three principles. In Japanese, it's sangen shugi. And so this is genba, genbutsu, genjitsu. So it's to really create what we need to go to the actual place, look at the actual things being done, and actually look at that reality, which is what we do in the military. We go to the actual place, work through this together to figure out what those requirements are and what's needed in that time, and then work back to get to that solution. And so, again, I keep referencing that my professor, Nonaka Sensei, made a big impression on me, but he explained that creating that important knowledge comes from multiple perspectives, engaging in intense intellectual combat to determine the best knowledge and innovation. And so what we need to do, at least from my Air Force prior experience, and what I would recommend is have the Kokujietai, the Japanese Air Self-Defense Force, and U.S. Air Force Airmen working directly together in realistic war games and exercises to determine the essential maintenance that's needed in a high-end, contested logistics environment. These warfighters need to generate these requirements, and then we can all work backwards from those requirements with industry, with government, higher headquarters staff, all of those here in this room today and watching online, to figure out how to provide this requirement maintenance to the warfighter and break through and resolve barriers that ultimately provide what's needed in the future. And so what you heard from General Hawkins, he's doing that today. Yesterday, he met with his counterparts. They're working through that, the higher headquarters, but they know it really needs to be done by that warfighters working through and figuring out what those requirements are. So I truly believe the opportunities for growth and innovation in this collaboration are immense. By leveraging cutting-edge technology and best practices from both nations, we can develop advanced MRO solutions that enhance the operational readiness and effectiveness of our force. So in conclusion, the strategic environment in the Indo-Pacific necessitates a collaborative approach to defense and security by strengthening U.S. Japan industrial cooperation, specifically in the realm of MRO for U.S. Air Force aircraft and Air Self-Defense Force aircraft. We can enhance our collective capabilities and readiness. The partnership will not only benefit our two nations, but also contribute to the stability and security in the entire Indo-Pacific region. I'm convinced that in our new national security strategy under President Trump and Secretary of Defense Hegseth, they will challenge us, that new security strategy will continue to challenge us to think hard about what is required in the Indo-Pacific, and in particular how best we work with our allies and partners and build the military and industrial capacity to deter, and if needed, to go to conflict and win to ensure a free and open Indo-Pacific region. So thank you for all being here today and for contributing to this important effort, and I look forward to our continued discussions on this vital topic. Thank you.
Well, thank you both very much. Both of you very eloquently and succinctly summarized for us the nature of the security environment, the strategic rationale for alliance integration, and the current circumstances and future potential for defense industrial cooperation and more work in the area of MRO specifically. I had all these questions listed for you on sort of the broader strategic picture, but you both were so comprehensive and eloquent, I think we'll just skip that and get to some of the other very interesting themes that you articulated. And Cynthia, by the way, you were very kind to mention Japanese skill, but you reminded me that when I was a graduate student, I had to have an oral exam in Japanese, and my professor, unbeknownst to me, invited the defense attaché from the Embassy of Japan. I don't think I've ever perspired more in my life, so I will not, bore you or belabor you with any of that, but nonetheless. Okay, so let's get right to it. Fukawa-san, really appreciated your overview of the current state of dialogue between the U.S. and Japanese governments, the DICAS being the main theme. and also your very candid assessment of the obstacles or the challenges. And you referenced regulatory environment, different standards, the need to make a case to the business community to solidify investment, and the importance of signaling to the private sector. If you wouldn't mind, just a follow-up question on that. So much to tackle there. From your perspective as a senior official at ATLA, what do you think is the first step to address these challenges?
So actually, there are a lot of challenges for U.S. and Japan's defense industrial cooperation for MRO of aircraft asset. But so I think that a lot of movement between U.S. and Japan have the already same direction for industrial cooperation. So I think we need to prioritize the we share the challenges and the reason why the challenges are there, and we have to discuss about how to solve the challenges by joint governmental actions and joint business-based actions.
So joint dialogue for the government.
And joint action.
And joint action and incorporating the views of the private sector.
Yes.
Appreciate that very much. General Kozinski, I was really struck by your assessment and case for a process connecting short-term risk, long-term risk, regulatory reform, and empowering the two militaries to work together. Could you just elaborate on that a little bit? Because I think that's really informative in terms of thinking about how to overcome challenges.
I saw this, maybe just an example, a few years ago when I was a deputy commander of 5th Air Force, or U.S. Air Forces in Japan. At that time, we were, at least on the local level, very empowered leadership to have our young airmen and young Kokujietai, the Japanese Air Self-Defense Force folks, to solve some problems. And one of the problems we had was of flying to remote islands and how to get fuel to those planes to be able to operate. And so we have an expeditionary refueling system from the U.S. Japan had some kind of their own system, but we thought there's no time to think we only can take U.S. planes or Japan planes. So one of the things we had a goal, solve this. This is when we want to be able to have a Japanese plane land like a C-2, offload fuel to a U.S. F-16 fighter and be able to take off and do what it needs to do. Or on the other hand, a U.S. C-130 with fuel kind of in it that could expeditionarily give fuel to a Japanese F-2 fighter. And so at first it seemed very hard, processes in place, but you give young people and they're empowered enough guidance or authority to kind of find a solution, they did. And it was amazingly how fast and able to do it. We found lots of processes and other things that were in place that really didn't have a reason, so we could overcome that. So that's the lower level. But this is the challenge in the middle, because at the top level, you really need to push that down. So I guess to the point, so I've seen that in action. The challenge is there's a lot of bureaucracy in between that low level and to the top. So I guess to elaborate is we need top level guidance. We need that incentive system to be able to take risk and to fail. If you fail, that's fine. Fail fast and figure out the solution to that, which I think our young military folks can do if they have the right incentive system and top cover and guidance to do.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to take advantage of your presence and vast experience to ask a question about how to deal with the potential need for surge capacity, the unexpected need to suddenly accelerate maintenance processes. When you think about the potential for U.S.-Japan cooperation in this area, what do you think would be most useful to get at that challenge?
Well, as I said, one, we have to move fast. We need to be able to start working through how to solve these problems and have working together not be just an exception in time of crisis. It's something we start doing more of. Our RSF, the Regional Sustainment Framework, is a great way to start with that. But then you soon realize, well, you need also supplies and spare parts and other capacity. So the surge challenge, I'm not in the Department of Defense, but if I was, the biggest need we need industry to be able to rapidly surge if we need you right now. But if you're from business, you can't just keep plants and people on standby without having some type of ability to get profit to that. And so I guess to get to the point, it's the ability to have this RSF where we provide as much work as we possibly can, not just with U.S. and Japan, but Japan's allowed to have Australia C-130, for example, or others to build that up. The other is the parts and supply chain, and this was a discussion as before we came in among some of the industry members that Japan, has limited parts, U.S. has spare parts. If we can combine those together and combine those to be like what we call in the Joint Staff, this forward preposition operating stock, this ability like collectively to keep things that are needed to be able to use and replenish and keep as a business case, that can build in that capacity. And so those are the things we need to think, how much more can we do collectively that can build in, because we want to surge, but it's unrealistic to ask industry just to surge any given time unless we provide enough profit, enough use to do that. So I think that's the stock piece, and then the process, and just the more that we practice and do this together and figure out ways that we can better interoperate. I'm very excited. I think the possibilities are immense, but we just have to be able to get started and get started with a sense of urgency.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. Fukawa-san, you spoke expansively about the interest of Japanese industry to get involved. I think one of the questions that we hear quite often is the question of capacity, and how Japan might build up more facilities to realize enhanced cooperation on MRO. So could you just expand a little bit on that, and from Atlas' perspective, what you think the needs are?
Yep. Thank you for asking. So yes, actually, so capacity of the Japanese defense industry is only focusing on domestic needs, because of prohibition of defense export from Japan for long decades. The capacity tend to depend on governmental funding to meet a requirement from self-defense forces only. However, so providing MRO service to USAF or any allies and like-minded countries' forces, or entering into U.S. defense supply chain by supplying parts or components, are different from Japan's domestic defense business. MRO cooperation and supply chain cooperation are from commercial cooperation as well as security cooperation. This suggests that neither the private sector nor the government should bear 100% of the investment. So actually, so ATLA introduces Act on Strengthening Defense Production and Technology Base. It gives ATLA's authority to provide funding to Japanese defense industries for modernization of their capacity and modification of exporting defense items from Japan's security considerations. In addition, so as you may know, so I'm temporarily transferred from Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industries through my experience as firms that are not specialized in defense business, but Japanese government provides various forms of support, including tax incentives for capital investment in areas such as improving production efficiency. So I think it's possible for Japanese companies to make investment by taking advantage of such support.
Great, thank you. Unfortunately, time is short. I could ask you questions for hours, but let me just try to squeeze in one more.
Yeah.
And then we'll turn it over to our friends from industry to share their perspective. General Kozinski, I appreciated your last point in your address, which was on the importance of technology. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity to expand on that, and based on your experience, how you think the U.S. and Japan should be leveraging new technology in this area.
No, I appreciate that question. So in my previous job as the director for logistics, I did a lot of reading and preparing for that job. And there's a lot, if you go back to previous world wars and how things went, and there are some similarities if you look at what's going on now. But books like Freedom Forge, if those probably a lot are familiar with that, I mean, there's a lot of similarities. But when we got to the point of a U.S. car company that could turn out a plane or a tank or that worked maybe 80 years ago, but today I'm an optimist. I like to dream and imagine, but there's no way, even our best, even Tesla could, create a B-21 or anything like that. But not that that's okay, but you have to reimagine. So this is where advanced manufacturing, and my job too, just seeing that ability to leapfrog that kind of old thinking of technology. There's some things that still may have to be built in that very complex way, but there's others that just, as you see what Ukraine and others are doing with drone and different companies to do that, to really rapidly produce. And so I see that future, that advanced manufacturing, that distributed technology and ability to produce, but also to iterate, to innovate and iterate technology is something that's very powerful. It's something that Japan's very, very good at. And I'd say with Japan, just speaking to the crowd here, and this is what I've been, for my career, but also recently talking with companies like, different kind of camera companies like Nikon. You would think of them as, it's not a defense company. It was actually 80 years ago with lenses and other targeting stuff. But they have amazing, and it's others too, not to single out a company, but many companies have this amazing advanced manufacturing capability. But they don't think of themselves as a defense company. There's been, because of the export controls and others. So I think across Japan, if you bring in other excellent companies that haven't thought about where they could actually help and contribute to national security and leverage that really advanced technology and distributed type ability with Japan and US and just innovation, it could be incredibly powerful. And so that's what helped me sleep a little better at night, because we just can't, there's some old thinking that may be helpful, but there's this forward thinking of really advanced manufacturing and leveraging all that is incredibly powerful about Japanese industry and US industry as well.
Great, thank you. And Fukawa-san, you also emphasized efficiency, effectiveness in your remarks. So your perspective as well on emerging technology.
Yes, actually, so before the current position, I was a defense director for defense industrial ready, and before that, so I was a director for technology strategy of METIs. From through my experience, the new technologies such as AI or additive manufacturing, great potential not only in the manufacturing, that also in the maintenance field. So I think, as far as I know, he said, so private company have already taken steps to automate production lines using robots, manufacture parts using 3D printers, and implement data-driven predictive maintenance using big data analysis and AI. This technology can also be used for MRO aircraft. And I emphasize Japanese defense, the characteristics of Japanese defense industry is not only defense business unit, but also the lot of commercial units in the companies. And so many of those technologies have already been introduced in private sector, commercial sectors. So I consider, so what the government should do is to create an environment conducive to the actual use of those new technologies. I think that we should discuss what standards should be used to ensure the reliabilities and certifications such as airworthiness. If this reliability is ensured, it will also lead to effectiveness. At the same time, so I address these discussions will not lead to reliability unless they are conducted based on actual MRO experiences. That is why we believe it's necessary to realize the cooperation of USAF MRO as soon as possible. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Well, clearly, our two governments are strategically aligned.
Yeah.
And you've both done a great job of laying out where we are and where we need to go. So please join me in thanking our distinguished speakers. We're just going to take a short break to mic up the next panel, so please stay with us. Thank you.
Some of this stuff's very good. That's very good.
right, welcome back. We have heard from the government on the opportunities for cooperation on maintenance, repair, and overhaul. And now I'm very pleased to introduce our esteemed industry panel. Let's see, I will start on my left with Mr. Chris Have, who is the Vice President, Enterprise Technology Release, Global Government Relations at RTX. Mr. Have leads a team responsible for managing RTX relationships with U.S. government officials across the Department of Defense and with international offices within the departments of the Army, Navy, Air Force, and missile defense industry. He is another graduate of the wonderful United States Air Force Academy and has an MPA from Harvard Kennedy School. Next, we have Mr. Koji Shirai, who joins us from Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, or MHI, where he is the manager of airframe and flight system design section in Fixed Wing Aircraft Engineering Department, Aircraft and Missile Systems Division, Integrated Defense and Space Systems of MHI. So it's a very large organization, a leading world provider of solutions in energy, smart infrastructure, industrial machinery, aerospace, and defense sectors. He spent some time living in Fort Worth, working with Lockheed Martin as part of MHI's partnership there. And then on my right, we have Mr. Nicholas Gross, who is the Senior Vice President, Integrated Solutions of AAR Corporation, which is an independent provider of aftermarket aviation services to government and commercial companies worldwide. For their government customers, they are a prime contractor for fleet management support, aircraft maintenance programs, contractor logistics support, performance-based logistics, and third-party logistics. And last but not least, all the way to my right, we have Mr. Hajime Kobayashi, who is the Deputy Director of Defense Systems Division and General Manager of the Aero Engine Project Department in the Aero Engine Space and Defense Business Area at IHI. IHI has been around for 170 years and has its roots in shipbuilding and has 4 main lines of work today in resources, energy, and environment, social infrastructure, industrial systems and general purpose machinery, and aero engine, space, and defense. So thank you very much for joining. I will give each of the panelists 2 minutes to introduce their companies and give us a little bit more detail on what they're working on. And then I will turn to my questions, and then if there's time, to audience questions. Again, please submit your questions online using the QR code. And even if we don't get to answer them, I will share them with the panelists. So who would like to start?
Okay.
Mr. Have.
So thank you, Chris Harvey from RTX. And you may know RTX from our businesses, Collins Aerospace, Pratt & Whitney, and Raytheon. 185,000 people, and on any given day, the largest aerospace and defense company in the world. And Fukawa-san, it's good to see you again. And our work with ATLA is long-lasting. I am proud to have been at the ATLA Industry Days these past 2 years and presented last year on what it would take for Japanese industry to export. And one of the things is we are also glad is to be part of the die-cast effort, not only for missile co-production, but we can talk today about aircraft MRO as well as supply chain resiliency. If you're in an aircraft, you're surrounded by RTX, and military or civilian, whether Collins Aerospace or Pratt & Whitney engines, or in a defense aircraft, obviously a radar or a missile. And one of the things that we're really proud of is our over 40 years of partnership with both IHI and MHI across a whole range of industrial endeavors, and we will talk about some of those today. And General Kaczynski, I also am an Olmsted scholar, but it was in France, and I don't know if my professeur or anything close to your sensei in terms of providing the kinds of tools for the rest of your life, but I look forward to the discussion.
Thanks very much. Mr. Shirai. Yes.
Okay. Hello, this is Koji Shirai. So my name is Koji Shirai. I am a manager of airframe and flight system section. So I was working for MHI America last 10 years, and the last 3 years I was working in Texas, Fort Worth. as a general manager of MHI America. And now I move back to MHI. So our company, MHI has been working for a long time, for many years, with J-model and Atoa. So our company manufactured F2 jets based on F-16 and F-15 jets, F-35 jet, and also UH-60, Seahawk or Black Hawk. So we have we cover a lot of field for aircraft with the J-mod. And also I want to say we cover not only manufacture but sustainment and MRO. So unfortunately, at this point, we have only for J-mod aircraft, but so we want to discuss here not only for J-mod but U.S. aircraft. So with our partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm Nick Gross with AAR Corp. As you mentioned, we are an independent provider of aviation services, and we're really service the entire aftermarket of aviation. And what I mean by that, we're kind of organized around three main business units. The first is our repair and engineering group, where we do heavy depot maintenance on commercial airframes, mostly narrow body, but 737, A320s, and then extended to military variants as well, such as F-16s, some rotary wing platforms, and other military platforms. We also have 6 component repair facilities across the world, 4 in North America, 1 in Asia, and 1 in Europe, a landing gear facility in Miami, but we really service all aspects of that repair and engineering or servicing our commercial and military airframes. The second part of our business is parts supply, where we distribute factory new parts for many OEMs, such as many of the RTX brands, both to commercial end markets, then also on the defense side, DLA, and also specifically the Japanese end market as well. And then the third piece of our business is what we call mobility systems, where we manufacture containers and pallets, 463L pallets that go on aircraft. Another unique thing is we also have a joint venture in Japan with Sumitomo Corp, where we specifically formed that to bring together the best of kind of the U.S. and Japanese industries to focus on both the Japanese end market, but also work on exporting some of those services as well to other end users. So excited to be here for the conversation. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Mr. Kobayashi?
Yep. Hello everyone. I'm Kobayashi, Deputy Division Director of Defense System Division, IHI. IHI is a heavy industry company in Japan, and our company was previously called Ishikawajima Harima Heavy Industry, but because the name is too long, when I obtained the call from our customer, hello, Kobayashi speaking from Ishikawajima Harima Heavy Industry, it's too long. So now IHI, so you can easily remember, please remember our company name, IHI. Yeah. So our major military products are jet engines and solid rocket motors. For military aerojet engines, we cover domestic development, licensed production, and FMS engines. Most of the engines we manufacture brand new engines and implement MRO and spare parts production for these engines. Because jet engines are rotating machinery and have hot sections, we need to replace most of those parts during MRO. That is why our autonomous spare parts production capability in Japan is key for MRO. So we do have a production capability from raw material such as forging discs and turbine castings. Again, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much for those introductions. And the first observation I will make is that the 4 companies represented on this stage already have extensive experience collaborating with companies in the partner nation on a variety of topics, including MRO. I'd like to start off with a sort of big level strategic question. We heard General Hawkins, we heard Councilor Fukawa, we heard General Kaczynski all speak about the importance of collaboration, especially in changing strategic environment. Are you getting that signal from your customers? Do you hear that from the Japanese and the U.S. militaries on the importance of collaboration? I'm not sure who wants to start, so I will let that go.
I can.
Thanks.
So something, first, yes, are we hearing the demand signal? One thing we talk about in industry is the addressable market. You know? And for what we heard in the keynotes was that the addressable market is not just Japanese aircraft in Japan. It's not just U.S. Air Force aircraft in Japan. It could be global aircraft worldwide. And so we could think about the title. Maybe it's collaborating for resilience, Japanese and U.S. industry cooperation on MRO for global aircraft systems. One of the things is in how to think about MRO, as General Hawkins said, when you heard the description of what they do there, it's not just turning a wrench. It's ensuring a resilient supply chain. It's updating software. So I think one of the things that we can talk about today is the demand signal, I think, is greater than just U.S. Air Force aircraft that happen to be stationed in Japan, which is changing, right? The U.S. Air Force is switching from 4th gen to 5th gen aircraft, and it will almost be an all F-35 fleet, at least for fighters in the future. And we also have to think of what is the addressable global market that Japanese industry can address, because we just know how strong Japanese both commercial and defense aerospace industry is. And then I think in the later questions we can talk about what are the transformations necessary to be able to address that entire global aircraft market using perhaps commercial mindsets to address defense needs.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to address that big picture question?
Sure, I'll answer. I would echo and say yes. I think we've been following the regional sustainment framework for some time and what Secretary Lohman was trying to do. We think it's obviously a great idea and a great strategy. And part of what Chris just said is how do you intersect the government and commercial marketplaces? Because a lot of times you focus in industry and say, okay, what does my defense industrial base have? Facilities, locations, people, personnel around the world, but really it's where does the U.S. or partner allied companies, commercial or defense, have these facilities, and I think that's where the greatest opportunity is to tap into that. I think the challenge that we continue to see is there's a lot of intent, everyone agrees it's good, but the execution piece is still pretty hard. One, for any industry to step up and invest and want to do it, you need to understand is there stable demand. And you need to you're going to have to sacrifice work from somewhere else to bring work to these locations, which I think is going to be hard. And then two, if you think of more regionally than just U.S. and Japan, you have to convince other countries, frankly, who want to keep that work in-house to export that work somewhere else as well. So I think there's a lot of intent and a lot of desire right now trying to figure out exactly how is going to be the challenge.
Okay, so that is a bigger picture ecosystem challenge. Mr. Kobayashi and Mr. Shirai, we heard very thoughtful remarks from Councilor Fukawa. Mm-hmm. Are you hearing that as you work with your Japanese government customers, this idea of collaboration with the U.S.?
Can I?
Yeah, please.
Yes. So we are, of course, I have the demand from U.S. government and Japanese government. So April last year, the establishment of DICAS as agreed, and so we know that the continuous discussions between Japanese government and U.S. government are going on regarding defense industrial collaboration, so including defense aircraft MRO. So we had a round table with ATLA, U.S. USAF official and Japanese industries to exchange opinions and our ideas and to share our situation and information among us. And we discussed MRO and sustainment for us, for U.S. aircraft. In the meeting, USAF official emphasizes geographical and geopolitical advantage of Japan. They expected Japanese industries to be involved in their MRO framework, so between Japan and the US. So that is which is for security for in the Pacific region. So they also told us they expected parts and component supply chain. So we believe MHI can support that demand. So not only our company, but so with our supply chain.
Okay, so that die cast is an important signal, and you're hearing this from the military as well.
Yes.
Yes, me too. Yeah. Actually, I attended the round table at the beginning of the January, where General Hawkins, Mr. General Hawkins attended. Yeah. And we obtained the same demand signal at the various, opportunities between USG and GOJ. Mm-hmm. And thanks to the license production program by US, we can enhance our capability, not only for the MRO, but also for the spare parts production and technical support to the field. So we are so excited now. It's a time to contribute U.S. Japan alliance.
Okay. Yeah. So all four of you agree that something has changed. You are getting this signal on the importance of collaboration. So more specifically, what are the opportunities for working together with industry from your partner nation? How are you seeing these opportunities? What are you already doing? From a strictly economic perspective, we see defense industrial cooperation bringing a range of advantages, including some that you've already mentioned, like more resilient supply chains, bolstering firms' performance in high-tech industries such as aerospace, and achieving economies of scale. So MRO collaboration can offer all of those benefits and enhance both nations' capabilities and positioning them for long-term success. So the demand is there, the economic case is there. What are you doing with collaboration right now? So let's start with Japanese industry this time. You mentioned a little bit of your collaboration with U.S. industry in your opening remarks. Can you share more details, maybe with an interesting anecdote, on how you are collaborating and how it is working? So since you most recently spoke, I will turn to Mr. Shirai.
So MHI, as I stated in opening remarks, MHI has been working for defense aircraft of JASAF, JMOT, such as F-2, F-15, F-35, and helicopter for many years. So in the MRO field, so we had a lot of experience and know-how in JMOT operation support, aircraft maintenance, upgrade, and parts or components repair with supply chain. So in order to expand these activities to U.S. aircraft, we have to clarify constraints and challenges, and we have to resolve them. So however, we have enough potential capability to support MRO for U.S. aircraft.
Thank you. Mr. Kobayashi?
Yep. Yeah. Now, IHI is implementing F-35 fighter engines MRO as Asia-Pacific regional depot, and also starting to initiate MRO for other licensed engines from U.S. And in addition, IHI has already initiated spare parts production to U.S. licensor for various engines, and trying to expand this global business. And because how to secure spare parts in timely manner is key to success engine MRO. We should utilize spare parts manufactured by ourselves so that we can obtain a huge synergy for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Yep.
So now I'm going to go to the U.S. companies, and both of you offer pretty different capabilities here. Nick, AAR offers repair services and supply chain management on a wide variety of aircraft, which you do not build. You are not an original equipment manufacturer. You are a supply chain manager, a provider of repair services. What is your more specific role on repairing and supporting the repair of aircraft in Japan?
Sure. As I mentioned before, we have this joint venture, ASAS, which is really kind of what we formed specifically for that Japanese market. And there's a few different what I'll call strategic kind of lanes that we have. But on the supply chain piece, we already distribute parts into Japan for many U.S. OEMs, basically into that market. What we're trying to do next, though, and it is a little bit of a kind of paradigm or culture shift. The difference between the two markets, for example, where in Japan it's very much on demand as needed, where in the U.S. it's more availability based. So a bigger use of PPLs, kind of comprehensive programs, I think is a common term used, and really trying to take the best of what we do and help both the JMOD directly, but also the likes of MHI or IHI. If we can bring our supply chain expertise to help them with their MRO lines or production lines or whatever it may be, invest in inventory, hold the inventory, stock the inventory, so you're not necessarily a lead time away when you do these parts, which unfortunately you see a lot of it. Obviously there's been a tremendous amount of inflation and escalation on OEM parts over the last 5 years or so. The exchange rate hasn't necessarily helped as well. So by if you're turning towards more long-term agreements and more comprehensive PBLs, you can help alleviate some of those kind of external issues, still improve reliability, and still keep cost controls in bay. So really trying to shift the mindset a little bit to focus more on these more strategic supply chain programs rather than the one-off.
Okay, so it's a good reminder that no matter what happens within your business, you do operate in a larger
Absolutely.
context with things like inflation that you can't control. RTX, Mr. Habe.
Certainly. So as Kobayashi-san said, we have partnered with IHI to help them transition from producing parts of the F-135 now to a regional MRO. But I would like to also come back to something that General Kaczynski said about having parts on the shelf and ready to go, right, when they're needed. In the commercial world, if you're Collins Aerospace, and you probably sat in a Collins seat when last time you flew on a Boeing or an Airbus, or all kinds of systems, you're surrounded by Collins Aerospace on a commercial aircraft. Or if you're the engine on an Airbus, it could be a V2500, a geared turbofan that we partner with IHI on as well. We know what that market is. We know what the MRO market will be because we have all of our airline customers, and it's very predictable. So we can provide orders to IHI if we need this engine part, that engine part, this engine part. Collins can go out to its suppliers, we need this and that and the other. Military customers are much more fickle. They change their budgets. The American budget is on an annual basis. So it is much harder for industry to react to that kind of thing. So to be able to adopt a more commercial mindset, that is, let's just take gas turbine engines. For the F-135 depot level maintenance, after a certain level of minimal, if you will, inflow that is for Japan, for Australia, for Netherlands, for Norway, it will be competitive after that. So having a commercial mindset about how to do that at lowest cost will be important. Also, for the F-100 engine, to be able to be a global parts supplier for the F-100. So that it's not just thinking of the licensed production for the Japanese market, but how that particular turbine blade could go anywhere in the world in any F-100 engine. And that will take a commercial mindset as well, and we can talk about later what are the ways we could potentially do that across both gas turbine engines and the rest of the aircraft in terms of MRO.
Thank you. Does anybody have any additional comments they'd like to make?
Yeah, if I could just add to that, I think that the blend of commerciality is just a fantastic point. And it's, if you understand the demand, it's easy to do. I mean, a lot of commercial airlines have what's called the PBH, which is powered by the hour, which is the same thing as performance-based logistics and really the government world. So the intersection of those two and being able to operate more like you do commercially, I think brings tremendous value if you have the right data in order to demand, or in order to understand forecasting and those sort of things.
Thanks. All right, so we have the demand signal. We have opportunities. We are already, well, you are already working together. So that's the good news. Now let's get to the challenges. In order to take advantage of these opportunities, the challenges involving in defense industrial cooperation must be identified and overcome. Regulations such as ITAR, NISPOM, which is the National Industry Regulations such as ITAR, NISPOM, which is the National Industrial Security Program Operating Manual, and classified program requirements. And how do you build the legal and other capacity to address these? So starting with the challenge, who would like to go first? What are the challenges that you see in cooperation? What are the main barriers in working together? There's no challenges.
Okay. Yeah, no,
Good, everybody can.
Okay, so challenges to working together to do what? And I think what we are talked about is how for our two industries to collaborate together to address a global aircraft MRO market, particularly on defense. We can talk about the ITAR and NISPOM first. The good news, if you will, is that companies like ours have decades of history working with many different nations. I remember when I was an A-10 squadron commander in Germany, and we had to send our aircraft to go get modified. We flew them to Belgium, and Belgians replaced all of our navigational equipment, which was ITAR controlled. So that was a Belgian company updating an American aircraft in Belgium that was then going to be flown in combat in that area. So there's a lot of history, a lot of experience. And so then it's how to, one, for Japan to adapt its regulations and structures to, and I know ATLO is working very hard on supporting Japanese industry to adopt these because it takes money. It takes money to hire lawyers. It takes money to put in IT systems to be able to control all this data, classified and unclassified. And then to partner with American industry so that we can be your mentors. And now in terms of not only having this information, but being able to export your own classified information around the world. The second part that has to do with investment is how to grow the defense industrial base, like you already have the Japanese commercial aerospace industrial base, in order to meet this global demand. And that means being less, it just takes money. It does take money to have that investment so that the F-100 line, for example, is not just making parts for Japan, but it's making parts for the rest of the world. And once again, Fukawa-san talked about that, the potential for that, that aid being there. So those were the two things we would think about, is how to invest in the right regulatory and or industrial capacities for Japan to meet the global demand.
So those are two big challenges, which is how do we overcome these regulatory barriers, which are there for an important reason, but they do slow down cooperation. And the second one is investments, or who is going to pay for this increase in capacity that will be necessary. Does anybody else want to pick up on either of those topics or at any other challenges?
Can I speak?
Please.
So we experienced several challenges, so several difficulties, and one of the most difficulty is regulation. So between U.S. and Japan, so very different. So we have different regulation. For example, so NFPA, fire protection. There is a big difference between in the United States and in Japan. So we have to equip sprinklers in our building, in our facilities. So that was a big risk for us to keep a schedule and the cost. And we have to understand our situation, each other, discuss the requirement defined in the regulation. Then we should consider what is essential and what can be relaxed. So also we have to handle idle carefully. So we spend a tremendous time and effort to manage idle appropriately. We expect the procedure to handle idle will be relaxed. So in this situation, we expect that the government to support us in order to relax the regulation.
Okay, so you touched on the big regulation of ITAR, but you also touched on fire protection systems. And I think that gets back to a point that was raised by General Kaczynski, is that you can't just wait till the time of intense need to work out what all the challenges are. You might think you know what they are, but by working together in advance, you can help identify and hopefully get to a solution on the myriad specific challenges of cooperation.
I would just add, I think one other forgotten, and I don't know if it's General Hawkins or General Kaczynski said it, was the U.S. for U.S. fleet specifically, the U.S. contracting regulations, right? So, which are very much written towards U.S. companies and trying to, written by the U.S. acquisition community and trying to follow those standards or regulations in a location that doesn't necessarily do that. So that's the challenging part. But I also think for both the contracting piece and things like ITAR and NISPOM and those, that's why the collaboration and partnership is so important, because it brings together the knowledge base from both of those that can help bridge those. There's always going to be classified systems that either going to have to come out and be shipped back, or you're going to have U.S. personnel with clearances go over to work on those systems, because that's just the way the regulations are read. So I think if anything, the challenges are challenges, but they further highlight the need for the partnership and collaboration between the U.S. and Japanese defense industrial bases.
Thanks. Mr. Kobayashi?
Yep. Yeah, quite honestly, about the ITAR regulation. ITAR, thanks to the experience of the license production program, we are familiar with ITAR. And most of my career is the program manager for one of the license production from US. So right after I became the manager, there was a export control reform. Maybe most of them, most of you know very well. So I learned a lot. So we are ready to comply with ITAR regulations, but maybe the NIST security requirement and the fire protection, it's the same for us. And we also facing the big challenges. It has an initial lead time and the workload, because there is a difference between the GOJ and the USG. So that's why we have to overcome. For example, even we have already been certified by GOJ. We need to obtain the certification from US organization. That spends a lot of time and a lot of workload. So if one of the possible solutions is the establishment of the bilateral cross certification between USG and GOJ.
Okay, thank you. So that covers the regulatory issues. Let's move to business issues, like the challenge of having an adequate workforce or growing the supply chain. I know that in talking to U.S. industry, one of the challenges of surge is the difficulty of making a business case to invest in it without a government demand signal, and more specifically, a contract and funding. Is this also a problem, or not a problem, but a challenge in Japan? Who's going to pay for any kind of investment in facilities? Has that question been addressed? I know it can be a little bit touchy, but is that something that you're discussing or you are looking for a solution with the help of government partners?
Yep. Can I?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Yes. That's a very good question. As you may know about the capacity, our current capacities are optimized for JMOT, both for MRO and spare parts production. So for the peacetime demand, maybe long-term demand is very helpful for us to judge the investment. And to get ready for the contested environment, we need to discuss in detail how to secure capacity in advance. That is our current challenge.
Would you like to pick that up? Any other comments? I mean, are we seeing we have heard about the demand signal, but a demand signal without investments is insufficient.
Can I speak for us
Please.
for business issues?
Yeah.
So as stated in previous session, Japanese defense industry, including MHR and IHR, so optimize our own resource and equipment for contract with JMOT. So when we execute contract with both JMOT and U.S. government, so we have to expand our business. So first we understand the requirements and regulation from the U.S. Then we have to evaluate the impact on existing contract with JMOT. And then so finally we determine the feasibility of the business. So we expect U.S. government to clarify their own needs or requirements, so to start the contract.
Okay, so we need to start at the requirements phase here. Do RTX and AAR, are you seeing any kind of signal about funding, or do you have any other sort of business challenges like workforce that you'd like to address?
No, I think I touched on the same thing. The demand or predictable forecast is the most important aspect to understand if the business case makes sense. That's Japan or anywhere else in the world. And I think that's going to be the challenge, is how if the U.S. is the baseload customer, you take the U.S. as the baseload customer, but then you bring the other regional pieces into it, can you provide a predictable demand, a forecast that would warrant the investment if a company has to make it themselves? And again, that's anywhere in the world. So I think that's going to be the challenge for RSF as a whole.
So part of the goal here is not just sizing the facilities to meet Japan plus Air Force needs, but to think about what broader needs that capability could meet.
That would be the hope, yeah.
So for one of the trends that we are seeing happen right now is so many allies are increasing defense budgets. The trick is to allocate those defense budgets where they will provide the most efficient increase in capability in the shortest amount of time. I think all nations are working on that very hard. In terms of aircraft MRO in Japan, let's take the F-35. It has a lot of components. It has the most powerful fighter engine in the world, and it has a lot of unique capability. So if you're Collins Aerospace, you do want to build a broader network of small and medium-sized companies in Japan, particularly, and larger ones too, that can help bring more capability faster at the time and place of need, rather than having to do all the MRO from back home or from another country, because there's so much of the F-35 that is made by Collins Aerospace. If you're Pratt & Whitney, there are constraints that are already part of the F-35 program and the F-135 engine program. So in that case, it's about how do we make, in Japan's case, how do you make the MRO as competitive as possible? Once again, leveraging not only IHI, but other companies there. For the F-100 is a different story, because that will be about Japan, but it'll be about the rest of the world also, because there won't be U.S. aircraft with F-100 engines much longer into the future in Japan. So I would say that one of the things we have to think about is how do we allocate those dollars in MRO in the most efficient way so that Japan, the U.S. Air Force will expect a certain mission-capable rate. And so even if a Japanese company is working on it, and we have to make sure that the resources are invested in a way that can support that.
Thank you. So we've talked about the strategic picture, the opportunities for collaboration, the challenges of collaboration. I'm going to offer you all one last question and the opportunity to make any closing remarks you might have, which is, how can cooperation go beyond the ups and downs of specific challenges and become a feasible long-term business model? How do we make cooperation last? So if you have any thoughts on that or anything else you'd like to offer before we close out today, I'll again start off with you, Mr. Kobayashi. Thank you.
Okay. We, IHI, our first priority is how to contribute Japan's national security. So we would like to focus on the realization for deeper U.S. Japan alliance and supply chain resilience. Of course, IHI will follow GOJ's national security policy and their intention, and we will discuss U.S. industry as well. That's all.
Thank you.
I guess I would just add, the good thing is that there's a shared sense of end purpose or mission between obviously Japan and the U.S. with the possibility of conflict in the region, and I think you have complementary businesses between the U.S. Defense Industrial Base and the Japanese Industrial Base. They're both very good in their own right. So I think that those situations will naturally lead themselves to solid partnerships. Again, I know I sound like a broken record. I've said it in the past, but there's got to be stable demand and forecast basically for that demand in order for those partnerships to hold, invest in that infrastructure, and then be able to actually operate effectively.
It's an important message, so
I know,
it bears repeating.
Yeah.
Mr. Shirai?
Yes. So because MHI has obtained sufficient experience through the JMOD contract, business with JMOD, so we can support U.S. aircraft operation based on our experience and our supply chain. So however, we think this framework should be mutually beneficial. So we expect to see merits such as expansion of scope of technical information disclosure as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the good news is we already have decades and decades of collaboration between Japanese and U.S. industry. In our own company, just look at the SM-3, Patriot, F-100, and now we're looking at missiles. So there is a APG-63 radar, APG-82 radar in the F-15. So there's just think about everything that Collins Aerospace does in the commercial space as well as the military space. So there's an incredible foundation to build upon. Now it's a matter of unlocking that commercial capacity into the defense space for Japan to be a global supplier and be competitive on a global scale and not just seeing JMOD. I think we've talked about that a lot. But we have a great foundation, and I think that's something, as long as we address all of the issues we talked about today, we have a good chance of success.
Thank you. I appreciate that positive note that we have a strong foundation and we can build on that. So with that, let us give a round of applause to our industry panel participants, and then Nick will come up on the stage, and please let's just sit here and offer some closing thoughts. So.
Well, thank you all very much. Hard to do justice to all the themes we addressed in a couple of hours. But one thing I heard repeatedly is that the die-cast dialogue between the U.S. and Japan is sending some demand signals with respect to MRO cooperation. So very quickly, if you'll bear with me, I thought I would recreate the die-cast acronym and highlight some of the key takeaways, at least from my perspective. So D is for deterrence. General Hawkins started the event by reminding us that alliance integration in and of itself is a form of defense capability and critical to deterrence in an increasingly complex security environment. ITAR, regulatory hurdles, clearly one of the challenges we heard about repeatedly. C, cost, the importance of bringing a commercial mindset to this enterprise and thinking of the global MRO market. A, I'll cheat a little bit. AI and advanced manufacturing, the importance of integrating emerging technology and taking advantage of our respective strengths. And finally, S, scale, both economies of scale, but also operationally the need to scale with respect to the potential need for surging in the region. So lots of challenges, lots of opportunities. We had a great discussion today, and we look forward to continuing to research this topic going forward. So thank you all very much.